The Galactic Academy Hall was silent. It was the largest learning chamber in the entire system. The ceiling was high and shaped like a dark dome of stars. Soft blue light floated in the air. Rows of seats rose like steps toward the back wall. Hundreds of alien students filled those seats. Some had long silver scales that shined under the light. Some had metal skin that moved with quiet clicks. Some did not even sit. They floated calmly in the air, glowing faintly. At the center platform stood Professor Kael'thir. His body was tall and made of clear crystal. Light moved inside him like slow lightning. His voice did not echo loudly, yet every word reached every ear. Today's lesson was marked as advanced and classified. The title appeared in red letters behind him: Deathworld Species and Their Dangerous Traits. The room grew colder. The screen changed. A red planet slowly rotated in space. It looked violent. Dark oceans, huge storms, lightning flashing across continents. The professor spoke calmly. Planet classification, Deathworld, Level 9. The students stiffened. Level 9 planets were rare. Most life could not survive them. New words appeared on the screen. Gravity, extreme. Weather, violent storms. Predators, apex hunters. Oxygen levels, unstable. Disease rate, high. War history, continuous. Soft murmurs spread through the hall. One insect-like student whispered, "Nothing intelligent evolves there." The professor continued, "Species from this planet should not exist." He paused. Yet they do. The red planet zoomed closer. A single word appeared: Earth. Many heads turned slowly. In the back row, near the wall, sat one human. She was small compared to most species in the room. No scales, no armor, no glowing skin, just simple dark academy clothes. Her hands rested calmly on her lap. Her face showed nothing. The professor raised one crystal hand. Deathworld Trait 1, High Pain Tolerance. Images appeared. Humans walking with broken bones. Humans running while bleeding. Humans standing again after falling. Low laughter came from a group of reptilian students. Primitive, one of them muttered. The professor did not react. Trait 2, Aggression under stress. The screen showed old human wars, explosions, soldiers shouting, smoke rising into the sky. Whispers grew louder. Violent species, unstable. The human girl did not move. Trait 3, Rapid adaptation beyond safe biological limits. Images changed again. Humans living in deserts, humans living in snow, humans deep under oceans, humans in space. Some students shifted in their seats. That was not normal. The professor's voice lowered slightly. Trait 4, Emotional instability mixed with extreme loyalty bonding. Images showed humans crying, then fighting, then protecting each other, then mourning their dead. Several students leaned away from the human girl. Emotions like that were dangerous. Finally, the professor spoke the last line. Trait 5, When threatened, humans do not retreat. The screen showed a small human force standing against something much larger, outnumbered, surrounded, still standing. Silence filled the hall. The professor folded his crystal hands behind his back. Conclusion, he said slowly. Humans are dangerous. The word dangerous echoed in the quiet chamber. No one spoke. The air felt heavy. Then, a soft voice broke the silence. Stop. It was not loud, but it was clear. Every head turned at once. The human girl in the back row had raised her hand. She was no longer sitting, she was standing, and for the first time, the entire academy was looking at her. The professor stared at her. The entire hall waited. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the professor spoke. "You may speak." His voice was calm, but there was pressure behind it. The human girl stepped out from her row. Her boots made soft sounds against the metal floor as she walked down the long steps toward the center platform. Every eye followed her. Some students shifted in fear. A tall, armored student quietly activated a shield around his arm. A floating being increased its glow, ready to defend itself. Humans were labeled dangerous. No one wanted to take risks. But the human girl walked without hurry, without anger, without fear. She reached the center of the hall and stopped. The red planet Earth still rotated behind her. For a second, she simply looked at it. Then she turned toward the professor. Her voice was steady. "You listed our traits as if they are crimes." A small wave of whispers spread through the chamber. The professor tilted his crystal head slightly. "Are they not?" he asked. His tone was not mocking, it was serious. The human did not answer immediately. Instead, she lifted her left wrist. A small silver device was attached to it. She pressed a button. The academy screen flickered. The image of war disappeared. New images appeared. An earthquake shaking a city, buildings falling, dust filling the sky. Then, humans digging through broken stone with bleeding hands, humans pulling strangers from the rubble, a child crying, a firefighter carrying her to safety. The hall grew quieter. The images changed again. A forest burning in bright orange flames, smoke covering the air, animals running, humans running too, not away, toward the fire. The human girl spoke clearly. "You call it aggression," she said. "We call it protection." The next image appeared. A poor village during famine. Food was limited. Faces were thin and tired, but humans were sharing what little they had. A mother giving her meal to her child. Neighbors cooking together. Hands passing bread from one to another. "You call it high pain tolerance," she continued. "We call it endurance." The professor watched closely. He did not interrupt. The screen shifted again. A hospital room, machines beeping, a soldier missing one arm. Beside him, his family holding his hand, tears in their eyes, but also smiles. "You call it emotional instability," she said softly. She paused. The hall was completely silent now. Even the floating students had lowered themselves slightly. The human looked around the chamber, at the scaled faces, at the metal bodies, at the glowing eyes. "We call it love." The word felt different in the room, heavy, real. Some students looked confused, others looked thoughtful. The professor stepped forward slightly. "Love does not win wars," he said. His voice was still calm, but firmer now. The human lifted her eyes to meet his glowing core. "No," she answered. Her voice did not shake, "but it makes us fight them." A small murmur passed through the hall. She continued, "When we fight, it is not because we enjoy violence. It is because someone we care about is in danger." She turned and pointed to the earlier war footage, still paused in the system memory. "You showed our wars," she said, "but you did not show why they started." She faced the class again. "Most of our wars began because someone attacked first, or someone needed help." The professor was silent. The hall was silent. For the first time, the human did not look small. She looked steady, strong in a quiet way, and the students were no longer looking at her with fear alone. Now
They were listening.
The professor stood very still for a long moment. Then he lifted his hand. A new file opened. A red symbol appeared on the screen. Classified, council level. A low sound moved through the hall. Students rarely saw restricted files during open lessons. "Very well," the professor said slowly. "Let us reveal the rest." The screen changed. Dark space filled the chamber. Then, war. An unknown alien fleet appeared from deep space. Their ships were massive and black, shaped like blades. Energy beams fired in every direction. Planets burned. Cities collapsed. Defense stations exploded one by one. Students gasped. Some covered their mouths. These were Deathworld encounters, the professor explained. Several border systems were attacked without warning. The footage showed different species running in fear, ships escaping, governments falling. No negotiation, no mercy. The enemy fleet moved like a storm. System after system went dark. But this one was different. The screen zoomed into one small star system. It was not rich. It was not powerful. It was home to smaller species with limited defense. The enemy fleet entered the system. Panic spread. Then, small ships jumped into view. Not large, not advanced compared to the attackers. Human ships. Some were already damaged. Some had visible repair marks. They formed a line between the attackers and the planet. The human girl watched silently. Her face did not change. The professor continued. The Galactic Council requested emergency assistance from all member species. The screen showed recorded transmissions, messages sent again and again. Immediate support required. Civilian extinction risk high. Requesting reinforcements. The professor paused. Only one species responded. The hall felt colder. Humans. More footage appeared. Human soldiers landing on burning cities, not attacking, evacuating, carrying alien children, lifting injured civilians. Human medics treating species they had never seen before. The enemy fleet fired again. Human ships broke apart under heavy fire. Still, they did not move. Human commanders were heard over comms. Hold the line. Protect transport ships. Evacuate the surface. A human ship exploded. Then another. They lost many ships, the professor said quietly. But they continued to engage. The battle lasted hours. Human ships fought in close range. They rammed enemy vessels when weapons failed. They shielded escape transports with their own hulls. Finally, the enemy fleet retreated. Damaged, slowed. The invasion stopped. Silence filled the hall. No one laughed now. No one whispered. A small insect-like student slowly raised a shaking limb. "Why?" the student asked softly. "Why would they fight for worlds that were not theirs?" Another student added, "There was no resource gain, no strategic benefit. It was illogical." All eyes slowly turned toward the human girl again. She stood calmly in the center. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she spoke. Because someone had to. Her voice was not loud, but it carried through the entire chamber. She looked at the frozen image on the screen, a human ship, broken and burning, still blocking the path of the enemy fleet. "We knew they would fall next," she said quietly. "If we waited, the war would reach us anyway." She looked at the students. "And if we did nothing, millions would die alone." The hall remained silent.
The professor did not argue. For the first time, the human did not look like a dangerous species. It looked like something else, something far more difficult to understand. Not a predator, not a monster, but a shield. And that truth felt heavier than fear.
The professor slowly dimmed the screen. The images of war faded away. The hall was now filled with soft blue light again. But the feeling inside the room had changed. It was no longer cold with fear. It was heavy with thought. The professor looked at the human girl standing before him. His voice was lower now. "You misunderstand, human." There was no anger in his tone, only truth. "We do not fear your violence." A few students looked confused. Violence was what they had been taught to fear. The professor stepped closer to the center platform. Crystal light moved slowly inside his body. "We fear your choice." The words were calm, but they carried weight. The hall became completely silent. Even the floating students stopped moving. "You choose to stand," the professor continued. "When stronger forces push you down, you rise again. You choose to protect, even when the ones you protect are not your own. You choose to return to battle, even when logic says run." The human girl did not interrupt. She listened. The professor turned and faced the rest of the students. "That," he said clearly, "is what makes a Deathworld species dangerous." He paused. "Most species survive by avoiding risk. Most civilizations retreat when loss becomes too high. But humans," he looked back at her, "they move toward the danger." A quiet ripple moved through the hall. The students remembered the footage, the broken ships, the burning cities, the evacuation lines. The human girl stood straight. She did not step back. She did not lower her eyes. Instead, she slowly looked around the chamber. She saw scaled faces, metal bodies, glowing eyes. Beings who had laughed earlier. Beings who had activated shields when she walked down the steps. "You study us like monsters," she said calmly. Her voice was steady. "But you call us when you are afraid." The words were simple, but they hit harder than shouting. No one spoke. A tall reptilian student near the front slowly lowered the defensive shield around his arm. The soft energy field disappeared. A metallic student who had activated energy claws quietly deactivated them. The sharp light faded. One by one, small defense systems across the hall powered down. The human girl noticed, but she did not smile. She only continued speaking. "You call us unstable," she said. "Yes, we feel fear. Yes, we feel anger. Yes, we feel pain." She placed a hand lightly over her chest. "But we also feel responsibility." She looked toward the professor. "When others suffer, we cannot ignore it. When someone cries for help, we hear it." The professor watched her carefully. He was not challenging her now. He was measuring her words. The hall felt different, not tense, not hostile. Something else, understanding. A floating student slowly lowered closer to the ground, no longer keeping distance. An insect-like student leaned forward instead of away. For the first time since the lesson began, the human girl did not look isolated. She looked equal. The professor finally spoke again. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "the galaxy has misunderstood the word dangerous." He faced the students once more. "Danger does not always mean destruction. Sometimes it means change." The hall absorbed those words.
And in that quiet moment, the fear that once filled the chamber was gone. In its place was something stronger: respect.
The professor stood in silence for a long moment. Then he slowly returned to the center platform. The hall remained quiet. No one whispered now. No one laughed. The human girl had not moved. She stood calmly where she had spoken. The professor lifted his hand. The screen behind him lit up one last time. The red image of Earth appeared again. Storms moved across its surface. Oceans crashed against land. It still looked wild, still dangerous, but now the students looked at it differently. The title above the planet slowly changed. The old words faded away. Deathworld species. The letters disappeared. New words formed in bright white light. Guardian species. Gasps filled the chamber. Some students looked at each other in surprise. Others stared at the human girl. The professor spoke carefully. Perhaps the term requires revision. He turned toward the class. For many cycles, we defined strength by survival alone. We believed the most dangerous species were those who destroyed. He paused. But today we reviewed evidence. He gestured toward the battle footage stored in the system. We saw a species that survives not only for itself, but for others. The room remained silent. The professor faced the students fully. Deathworld trait final, he said clearly. When others fall, they rise. The words echoed softly through the massive hall. The human girl slowly lowered her hand. She walked back toward her seat. This time, the sound of her footsteps did not bring tension. It brought thought. As she reached her row, something small but important happened. The scaled student who had laughed earlier shifted slightly. Instead of leaning away, he nodded once. A simple, respectful nod. The metallic being beside it placed a hand over its chest and bowed its head. The floating student dimmed its glow in a sign of peace. No shields activated. No one moved away. The human girl sat down quietly. Her hands rested again on her lap. She did not smile proudly. She did not look angry. She simply listened as the professor concluded the lesson. "Let this be recorded," the professor said. "Humans are not defined only by their world. They are defined by their choice." The screen behind him showed one final image. Human ships forming a defensive line, not attacking, protecting. The lesson officially ended. Lights in the chamber brightened. Students began to stand. But the feeling in the room was no longer fear. It was respect. Conversation started quietly. "Guardian species," one student repeated. "It fits," another answered. The human girl gathered her things calmly. As she walked toward the exit doors, the path opened naturally, not out of fear, out of acknowledgement. High above the academy, stars burned quietly in space. The galaxy was still dangerous. Threats still existed beyond the borders. But something had changed that day. The academy had not simply studied humans, they had understood them. And understanding changes everything. From that day forward, whenever a system sent out a distress signal, whenever darkness moved across peaceful worlds, the galaxy did not whisper in fear. They did not debate survival odds. They did not calculate retreat routes. Instead, across stars and systems, one message was sent with hope. 3 simple words. Call Earth.